All right, Connor. Today on the podcast, this is an emergency podcast episode. This was not scheduled. This is, so much craziness is happening right now. Sam Altman was just fired from OpenAI. I'm in the middle of a painting project, if you can see me. Got paint all over my shirt. I know you were just at Costco. It's a normal Saturday for us, but we had to come together, do this emergency pod, talk about what's happening, because there's a lot of really interesting things that I think people do not understand, or they don't fully understand around this whole situation. I know you've been completely dialed in. I've been seeing the fast and furious LinkedIn posts coming from you. You got a YouTube video you dropped last night. They got 10,000 views overnight. Like there's some crazy stuff going on. So Connor, give us your overview of what you think is happening, like as it sits right now with the whole situation of Sam Altman being fired, and kind of what this means.
So everybody woke up, or everybody sort of like spent yesterday thinking, is this a hoax? Is this a hoax? Right. So,
Yeah.
And then I think that the big speculation, Jane, you dropped your podcast right away. I think you're maybe one of the first to say, hey, here's some of the things. And I think what a lot of people were thinking, like, what is it? It was almost like a sex scandal type atmosphere, but clearly there's nothing coming out about that. So let's say where we are right now, and the most interesting things, and to me, the things that people are they're talking about a little bit, but it's really, really interesting to me because I think that all of a sudden everybody's learning exactly what OpenAI is and what it's going to be going forward. So here's where I would take it. Like, first of all, the name that not a lot of people talked about was Ilya Sutskever, right? So he is one of the co-founders. I think they poached him from Google back in 2015, but everybody knew Sam Altman, right? He's a very Steve Jobsian kind of figure, even though you always have co-founders.
He's running the show as this. Yeah, he's running the show as the CEO.
And he's in front of Congress. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's the guy that everybody's like, world leaders are, elbowing each other out of their way to sit next to, right? So, but here's like the really interesting thing, and the thing that it's almost like finding this clause in your terms and conditions and being like, wait, you can't possibly do that, right? Let's set this stage. OpenAI has a board. OpenAI's board is 6 people. So on those 6 people are obviously Sam Altman, Greg Brockman, Ilya Sutskever. Let's pause there for a second. Those are 3 co-founders of OpenAI. And then what they have are folks that are what they call like basically independent board members. So those are Adam D'Angelo, who you said last night, CEO of Quora. Tasha McCauley, who's a tech entrepreneur, and then Helen Toner, Georgetown Center for Security and Emerging Tech. So what's interesting about that? Well, 2 of those are now out. So on a board of directors, you do not need that many votes. So that's why this could have essentially been orchestrated by one man, Ilya Sutskever, and sort of, I assume leaning on these other 3 who probably didn't feel like they have as much power. That is number one. And the other thing that's so interesting about this is the why, right? And that's when I just sort of dropped another YouTube video. As you said, I raced home from Costco because I was getting all these texts, people like, what's happening? So raced home. And I threw up, not literally threw up. I felt like I was going to throw up. I put up on YouTube the flow chart of how the organizational structure of OpenAI. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that this is a 501c3. When like your nephew starts a toy drive and he starts a 501c3, that is what this is. It is a non-profit. And Sutskever was the one responsible for alignment, safety, and all that kind of stuff. And Sutskever was apparently the one who's like, this does not fit with what we are doing. Let's start over.
Yeah. So what I think is really interesting here is beyond just like Sam Altman did something bad. I think like a lot of people had theories about this. I think like his sister has some like allegations around him from when he was like a teenager and she was young. Some people call into question. I don't know. I won't get into all of that. But the reason why I think it's less likely to be related to something in that regard, people, aren't really going down that rabbit hole, is because it's not just Sam Altman that got axed. It's Greg Brockman as well. And he was the chair, right? So when you have the chair of the board and the CEO axed, this is like, it's a coup essentially, right? Like this is really coming from the inside. Now, of course, there's the independent board members. So you got the guy, the CEO of Quora. But in order to like essentially kick them out, they had to get buy-in from the other co-founders. They had to get, Mira and the rest of them, like essentially to agree to this. And there's not a lot of margin for error but someone had to lead the charge on this. So
well that's what's so interesting. Yeah. And just on that, right? Mira is not on the board though, right? So the buy-in, how much, that's the big question. Mira was apparently the first one to know, right? So Mira was apparently told Thursday night what was happening here, because Mira is the CTO. She was elevated to CEO. But as you're talking about, right, these other independent board members, and I don't want to speculate on who has power and who doesn't, all the kind of things. And I don't know the other people, so I don't want to say it, stuff like that. But when you have like, somebody like a Helen Toner, who's obviously a phenomenal individual and brilliant individual, but is that an individual who's able to stand up to somebody like an Ilya Sutskever? I don't know. I can't say enough, but certainly Ilya had the power to change the minds of those three people.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you kind of know where this is coming from. Like, this is a co-founder issue, right? And a lot of people are saying Ilias felt like they were going too fast to productization with the GPT store. It was too focused on commercialization and not focused enough on, their open source mission. What's interesting to me about all of this is criticism that you've heard from a lot of people for a long time. Elon Musk, super vocal. He's like, I gave them, $100 million or whatever. It was an open source nonprofit. Now it's a closed source for profit. He's mad. A lot of people are mad. My assumption was, okay, so the co-founders of OpenAI, they're all cool. They all say, let's, go make the money. Let's make it a, for profit, whatever. And they go do it. It seems like there was some like deep rooted factions within this where it maybe wasn't as settled, and maybe it was Sam Altman just kind of ramming it through a little bit. And then all of a sudden Ilias is like, hey, look, I have power. I can kick you out because you're kind of, so like, it's interesting because on the one hand, you want to be like, okay, this is messed up. Like, and especially to say, put their big quote out being like, we no longer have trust in him. Like that's kind of a little harsh. The guy that turned you from a 0 to a $90 billion company. I mean, it was a $20 billion company at the beginning of the year. Now it's 90 at the end of the year, like, or 80, whatever. It's like, okay, so he obviously is crushing it financially, like losing all trust in him. It's like, what does trust mean? Because it's not, and then his ability to lead. It's like, it's not his ability to generate revenue. He's generating a lot of revenue and he's kind of crushing on the financial side, like ability to churn out like good quality tech. No, he's doing that as well. There's a whole bunch of incredible innovations that Google and Microsoft can't, keep up with. So it's like, where's the trust lost? And a lot of people are saying it's on the safety side, pushing stuff through too fast. What have you heard on this?
That's exactly what I've heard. I'm not even sure I've heard anything else that's credible, right? I mean, like Sutskever, he was put in charge, and just this year in July of this year, he was put in charge. By the way, he's one of the time 100 AI people, right? So this guy's a brilliant guy. This year, he was put in charge of super alignment. He was put in charge of essentially ensuring that AI is in the same alignment with human values. Obviously, he took that very, very seriously. But here's the thing that is kind of confusing to me. How does it happen this quickly and this privately? This is not something that you could have possibly spoken to anybody else about, because this is a leaky sieve, right? I mean, like people kind of hear about any rumors like this. This is one of the most famous companies in the world at this point, especially around this, doing one of the most famous, unbelievable things in the history of the universe, which is creating AGI. They're at the forefront. And so what I'm hearing about this and what I'm seeing and all the things that seem the most credible are exactly what you're saying. Like, this is a guy who's like, hey, my mission is to protect this nonprofit. We started this because of this thing. We are not a 501c3 because we're trying to do, the Christmas toy drive, right? We are a 501c3 because we are trying to do this safely. And they were walking a knife edge, right? And I think Sam Altman back when people were talking more existential risk, he was like, we're not even training GPT-5. Now, probably bending the truth there a little bit. I think Code Interpreter probably was kind of the 4.5 or whatever. So maybe they were sort of like skirting the truth a little bit there. But also, there is no way to keep that sort of competitive advantage and slow down. In fact, when Sam Altman got up on stage and talked about the GPTs, he did not say, hey, guess what? Autonomous agents. The first thing he said was, autonomous agents can be dangerous. They are a risk. Sam Altman has never shied away from saying this is an existential risk. And that seemed to come from his heart and a place of real profound authenticity. I think Greg Brockman was the same thing. So I think to the outside world, like us, who are so unused to people saying, be careful with our product. You don't hear Meta being like, I don't use Facebook so much, or TikTok being like, oh, be careful, or Jack saying, watch out for Twitter, or Steve Jobs being like, don't use the iPad, it's going to, right? Sam Altman was the one saying, hey guys, be careful, we got to take this slowly. So that's what's so shocking to me, and I think what sort of like hits your point, which is that this was a safety issue. This feels like, and I don't even see any evidence, this is not conspiracy. This is a coup straight out of the coup, Webster Dictionary of a coup. But
Yeah.
second of all, this was really a coup orchestrated by one man. And in Ilya's defense, he's sort of saying like, look, you put me in charge of this. You guys were going off the rails. Now, I don't feel like I'm in Ilya's defense or on his side at all, to be totally honest. The fact that it happened so quickly, and maybe they had some behind the scenes thing, but so quickly, this was a coup. This happened at noon. They told Sam Altman at noon over on a Google Meet thing, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then Brockman, maybe 2 hours later or something like that. And then the world at the same time. Last thing I'll say on this is that Microsoft, to my understanding, does not have an exclusivity agreement. I mean, like this is Microsoft sort of apparently furious half hour before the bell rang, which means they lost billions on it. Nadella was up there on stage pinning his hopes and practically his body to Sam Altman. That's the thing that to me really just blows my mind, that it could have happened this quickly, which really raises for me concerns about, even though Ilya Suskova brilliant, it just raises concerns about how quickly this is all happening.
Yeah, I'll say if you look at the Microsoft stock over today, it's down. I guess it was all before market close, right? But it's down like 2%. After market, it's still it's trending down even more. So I think it's just getting worse. Apple's down, Nvidia's down. Like honestly, it's interesting because I think this is like there's big impacts. Like of course, everyone being dramatic on Twitter, or on X or whatever, but they're like, the star has fallen, like San Francisco is lost. Like they're saying like ridiculous things and it's funny and stuff. But at the same time, like, let's be honest, OpenAI was the shining star this year of tech startups. Sam Altman was the CEO and he led it, and he's led it for a long time. It's not like it was new co-founder, right? And when you look at this, like for all intents and purposes, a lot of people are saying without the AI boom we've seen this year, the economy would have been significantly more hammered. The stock market, we're doing good because we have Apple, Amazon, Intel, Nvidia that are doing good. If there was no AI and it was just another hard year for tech stocks and everything else, like the economy itself would be significantly more beat up. And so I think like a lot of people literally pin, like it's very significant. It's like the guy that led the company, that led the technology wave that's holding the whole freaking economy up right now. It kind of feels like that. And so when he's out and you're seeing everyone else is in the red right now, not a good feeling. But this is what's interesting. A bunch of stocks are dropping. You know who's not dropping? Amazon, up 1.6%. Wow. And a lot of people are talking about the fact that OpenAI was like the last thing kind of stopping Amazon and AWS from like total supremacy in this whole they were the number one web host provider and stuff. And so as soon as OpenAI comes in with all their cool tech, they partner with Microsoft. Microsoft makes them custom chips for training AI. They make AI super popular. Honestly, if you look at it, AWS has been losing a little market share, and Microsoft Azure has been gaining market share on the host side. So like, there's all of these other economic things that are coming into play right now that I think are significant in this whole conversation. Super, super fascinating. There's a bunch of funny predictions online. Okay, but the one thing I wanna say that I just heard is that one of the chief scientists, one of the chief AI people in charge of AI that was training GPT-5 quit. Right. Has just quit. And so with that, like it honestly begs the question of like, what's the future of OpenAI? It's kind of interesting if you go like Hacker News and like look at the tech forums, all the tech developers are saying like, hey, we're like working on this really complicated project with GPT-4 right now. What should we do here? Like, should we just quit and move to another thing? Like what should we do? And I think it puts us in this limbo space that people don't understand, like literally is slowing down tech and AI development. People don't like the uncertainty, and there's some serious uncertainty.
That's the thing, right? And this is the analogy that I keep thinking of with this, is that I think you just nailed it on the head, right? So like Altman's out, Brockman's out. There's sort of like, right away, overnight, 3 big scientists left from there. This is not like one of these things where Sam Altman goes out like Steve Jobs, like leaving everything like that. This is not a zero-sum thing. Like in politics, when you have like, your candidate on, X, side X, and then you're going up against, your rival on side B, and you're like, okay, but then the worst thing that can happen is another popular person pops up on your side, Why is that? Because it splits the vote, right? So the problem that OpenAI has right now is that Altman, Brockman, some of these other guys who are super popular. And by the way, OpenAI has still had a lot of people saying like, no, listen, we're still going. They weren't micromanagers. Everything's great, all that kind of stuff. But when you have a split, it's like that political party where now it has two popular people. That's the worst case for OpenAI, because it's not just like those people disagree and Microsoft and everybody else are still like, don't worry, we're still in OpenAI. What if Altman, Brockman, everybody else turn around and they either sort of like take some kind of like fledgling company that we don't even know about, but actually had like great tech behind it or something like that, take that over, sort of somehow supercharge and speed up their process. All of a sudden, you are now pulling at the fabric of OpenAI in terms of their best developers, their best engineers, everything else have to make a choice. Do they stay with, Ilya? Do they stay with Sam? How do they do this? And that to me is like the really terrifying thing for OpenAI, because, and you and I love OpenAI. OpenAI, think about this, Jaden. A week ago, not only was Dev Day a huge popularity, they had to stop selling their product, a digital product, because it was getting overwhelmed. Like, that's the rate of success that OpenAI was experiencing. And then this, I'm just stunned.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to read something interesting I saw. Well, okay. The first thing is Sam Altman has been very optimistic and positive, I would say, for all things considered on X. He's been posting. He did say one thing that I thought was hilarious, but he says, like, I love you all. Today was a weird experience in many ways, but one unexpected one is that it has been sort of like reading your own eulogy while you're still alive, which I thought was hilarious. Everyone like talking about him. Anyways, so he comes off with an optimistic vibe, but at the same time, there is an edge, because he also tweeted right after that. He said, if I start going off, the OpenAI board should go after me for the full value of my shares. I think he's kind of making fun of the fact that, he doesn't have, I don't know if he doesn't have shares or what the deal is. I know they structured shares.
No. I mean, he said he didn't have shares. Like, but that was one of the conspiracy theories too, right? That he actually had like things. But now I think we know. I think it's just an alignment issue, Jaden. Unless you think that you have another Jaden conspiracy, which I'm always here for Jaden conspiracies. If you think something else is going on.
Lots. I have lots. But I'll spare you some of them.
Listen, I mean, we obviously haven't seen the end of this. I mean, Google Gemini is all of a sudden looking really, really good. It's sort of like the person who has the scandal, and then all of a sudden there's a natural disaster, right? Like, it's kind of quote unquote the best quote unquote thing that can happen to that individual. We have just been talking about, how Gemini is sort of hurting and all that kind of stuff. This is going to be a new day for all these companies, Anthropic, everybody else. They have just been gifted this thing right in their lap.
Yeah. Okay. One conspiracy theory or theory, whatever you want to call it, right? That I do want to bring up, and I've been seeing this one a lot on Twitter. A lot of people are talking about this, so I feel like there's some sort of element to truth. But I'll talk through the whole thing. Anyways, someone tweeted and said, there's a small piece of evidence for the Ilya pushed the AGI panic button theory. So at APEC, one day before Sam was fired, an interviewer asked him, what is the most remarkable surprise you expect to happen in 2024? Sam Altman said, the model capabilities will have taken such a leap forward that no one expected. Okay, well, it sure seems like they're already taking insane leaps forward. So do tell, Sam. He said, the model capabilities, like what these systems can do, will have taken such a leap. Okay, wait, that's me repeating it. He said, it will be just different from expectations. I think people will have like in their minds how much better the model will be next year, and it'll be remarkable how much different it is. Okay, so obviously we're going to see some big things. He also said, and this is the one that a lot of people are quoting, he said, 4 times in the history of OpenAI, the most recent time was in the last couple of weeks. I've gotten to be in the room when we push the veil of ignorance back and the frontier of discovery forward. Getting to do that is the professional honor of a lifetime.
Wow.
No one knows what he's talking about.
Nobody knows.
But apparently 4 times in the history of the 8-year history, so once every 2 years, you would assume, some very monumental thing happens. And the most recent time was, the last couple of weeks. So all that being said, I think this really kind of goes towards the whole theory. They've discovered something crazy. Maybe Sam Altman got a demo of it. He didn't share it with Ilya, who is trending on X right now. Also, Sam and Greg are trending on X. The OpenAI, it's Twitter's blown up with this stuff. But some are saying he got some demo or he had some insider information. He knew what was going on and he didn't share it. So he got kicked out. leads to so many questions. Was this a good move? Could you not communicate better? Was he like, gonna harm the human race, or is Ilya overreacting? And if so, like, I want to just talk about what happens next. I would love to pick your brain on this, Connor. What happens next? Are Sam and Greg going to start a new AI company? Is it going to compete with OpenAI? Is it going to take it down but have no governance issues, and it's going to be a for-profit and a normal C corp from Delaware? Like, what's your prediction on that?
So this is such a good question, right? I don't think it's going to be a nonprofit. I just don't know if they're going to put themselves in that kind of position again, number one. But number two, you were talking a little while ago about Grok, right? That's Elon Musk's new large language model, and how hard it is to get these things up to speed in this amount of time. This is not just like, hey guys, we're going to sell this new service and now everybody come over to me. It's not like Threads or something like that, right? Where it's like, oh, it's sort of like Twitter, but it's not that complicated to build. Building these things takes a tremendous amount of capital. It takes a tremendous amount of engineers. It takes so much data. They've been now locked out. That's my big concern is the wrong word. Sorry. OpenAI, let's be honest here, is so powerful because it trained on everything before people understood their data was valuable. Those days are long gone as of a couple of months ago, right? Nobody's giving out their data anymore. I'm never going to doubt Sam Altman and Greg Brockman. But one of the things about these large language models is that they take time to build. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't just jump from 0 to ChatGPT 5. So if they're building a new company, I do not think, because I've never seen, not in history, I guess you see it in sports, somebody jumping to sort of like, Anthropic or something like that. Maybe somebody offer they can't refuse. Listen, Anthropic is one of the few places that, well, I might be wrong about this may be my ignorance, doesn't have like the superstar at the head, right? It's not like sort of an easily identifiable thing. But I would say Anthropic's in second place. I'm not even sure if Gemini is or not. But Google has its guy. Microsoft has its guy. People have their guy. Anthropic is so powerful. And if you put Sam Altman, I'm not speculating on this, I'm just saying that you sort of like almost have to get a model that is a going concern. Again, Musk is out there. Everybody's out there. Even with Inflection, you have Bill Gates and you have Eric Schmidt and you have others. Maybe Sam Altman, okay, wild speculation, hot take, don't quote me on this. Maybe he goes over to Anthropic and becomes the head of Anthropic. Man,
that would be insane. That would be insane. And I think you have a good point here, which is, everyone's like, oh my gosh, Greg and Sam are going to start a new AI company. And they might, right? But you also have to know it takes time to spin this up. And like, time is of the essence, as we're seeing with Gemini and Microsoft and everyone trying to catch up to OpenAI. Like, if that's got to be rough for Sam and Greg. They were at the cutting edge. A few weeks ago, he saw something that blew his mind that no one even knows about. He knows about it. So arguably, he's the only one that could probably figure out how to compete. He could probably poach the top talent from OpenAI to join him. So
no question.
There is some like things, but it's still the fact of, is going to take time to spin up a company, energy, time, like, and by which point people could push forward and get past them. And I'm worried about that. The one like glimmer of hope, I think, in that theory though, is essentially what I think Elon has been able to accomplish with, and I know everyone's gonna be triggered by me saying Elon accomplished, because I know Elon didn't accomplish it. It was the AI engineers that he got there. Whatever, guys, get off my case. But what they were able to do with Grok and with all of Twitter's data, that is impressive to me, that they really spun that up and trained it in 3 months. That's impressive. And they're going to do some cool things and they'll have their own stuff. That gives me hope that a rock star, like, but to be fair, they trained it and spun it up in 3 months, but Elon's been working on it for, I think, like 8 or something since the beginning of the year. So it's just like, what, do we have to wait till 2024 for Sam and Greg's like big unveil, cool thing they're catching up with? It just, kind of hurts.
You got to get through the holidays. But listen, by that time, Jaden will be like riding robot dogs, right? I mean, like, they have to do something fast. They have to sort of have some kind of head start. I'm dying to see what it's going to be.
Me too. Connor, thanks so much for doing this emergency pod with me. We're going to keep everyone up to date as things happen. We'll break you the news. We'll keep you in the loop on everything happening with the situation, because this is not just important for OpenAI, obviously. This is very important for AI, for tech, and I think it gets to the overall economy, what happens with this story. So we'll make sure to keep you up to date. Thanks so much for tuning into the AI Applied podcast. Make sure to rate us wherever you get your podcasts. Seriously, it helps us have the motivation to do these emergency podcasts in the middle of a Saturday. Helps our wives forgive us a little bit more. So make sure to leave us a 5-star review if you like the pod, and have a great rest of your Saturday.